to her as Miss Mumbi Wachira. My bad. I am so sorry. I should put some respect on it. All right, so we are moving on to the next part of our conversation this morning, and we are supposed to be joined by Doreen Orishaba. But before we can get the seats up on the stage, there's just a few things I was thinking about while you're talking, and you're talking about how much we have affected the environment, how much we have affected the earth. And let me just give a background so that it makes sense what I'm talking about. I consult for a company called Chemolex. Chemolex is an organization that is keen on waste management and clean energy. And there's a few projects that we have been doing, particularly in trying to remove and reduce, because we can't totally do it, reduce the amount of plastic waste that ends up in rivers that eventually drain into the ocean. And we have installed plastic capture devices on two main rivers, Nairobi River and Magara River. And you realize every month, imagine 4 tons of plastic waste from those two rivers, from at least 3 capture devices, because they are stationed at different parts of the river. And that is not the entire length of the river. So if 3 plastic capture devices can capture 4 tons of plastic waste, just how much plastic waste are we producing? And is it sustainable? Because imagine if all the rivers that eventually drain in the ocean, if each of those rivers drain that amount of plastic. I'm thinking there's a time we'll be going to Mombasa, it's Christmas, and you want to go to the beach, and it is full of plastic. And we have seen this happen in other parts of the country, especially in, I think, Southeast Asia, where there's so much plastic pollution that it's not sustainable. And I want to throw this challenge back to us. How many times do you feel a pinch when you go and buy takeaway and it's packed in plastic and you know you will use it for just that one meal at lunch, throw it away, you want to take your meal alongside a drink, you take that drink in that takeaway can, you throw it tomorrow. How is that even sustainable? I mean, sometimes I think we also blame a lot of this pollution we see around on Kanjo. But I'm thinking, is it even possible? How many employees does Nairobi County need to have to collect this much waste that we are producing daily? It is not sustainable. And you're talking about species that are no longer on Earth because of, some of the effects of the climate change and whatnot. And I remember seeing a story about animals called mammoth. I don't know if you remember, I think we read about mammoth in primary school, if you went through the normal 844 system. And these mammoth animals were like elephants, but humongous version of elephants. And they went extinct. And people thought that probably because of, just like dinosaurs, they could not adapt. Maybe food was not that much available and stuff like that. But then there was a researcher, I don't remember his name, who was talking about the role that those mammoths were playing in ensuring that the earth does not heat up. So because they lived in very cold areas like Russia, you get to see a lot of those big animals, they were mostly seen there. So because of the cold and because of how big they were, they would be pressing on the ice and breaking it such that they ensure that the heat from the Earth's core or the Earth's surface does not break through the ice. So when these animals go extinct, then that heat can escape. And that means you're likely to experience hotter climates or the climate change that we talk about. So something that feels so insignificant or something that you don't even think about, but everything, I always say, God was so deliberate in how this world was created that every living thing plays an important role. I just ask myself what role mosquitoes play and flies. Those ones are probably an exception. But every little thing plays a role in this big ecosystem. So I think there is one more person who's supposed to join us. I'm not aware of that. Sebastian, kindly let me know who the other person is. So pretty much what I'm saying is we need to start looking at these things not from, for a very long time, sustainability has been a topic that has been seen as an elitist topic, a topic for people that are not us. But working with these people in informal settlements, because our activities are mostly in Kariobangi, Mathare, Korogocho, and you see just how much role we play. Because you see the communities that live by the river, I don't know how many of you who've seen Nairobi River up close. It's black. And you could see all the properties that are developed along the river. They don't invest in sewerage or even bother to get connected. They just know this waterway is our sewerage. So they even put a pipe that they're not even hiding, that drains exactly. And you know the difference comes in, like poverty is a big deal. When you see the river, Nairobi River, before it's, I don't know if that's Nairobi River, I think it's Mathare. But before it gets to, what's this hotel? Utalii Hotel. The water is water that can be used even for farming. As soon as it crosses to this other side of town, that water is something else. So we were talking to landlords, just asking them. I mean, there is nobody in their right minds would do such a thing because this is just wrong. And they say, money, if I tell these people to invest, or if I charge more because I provide this service, people will not rent my property. So we were challenging them. Then how about the property owners? Because property owners are people with money and they don't have small money. How about you pull together and say then how can we connect? Because the main sewerage line is less than 100 meters away. But nobody cares because this is a place where people don't care. So for me, the responsibility starts even with the people who are affected, money or not. Like if I look at my environment and feel like this is not right, maybe I would go to the nearest Kanjo office and ask them, by the way, and I don't do it in a way that is combative. I normally ask, do you guys normally have cleanup days where we can join in? Why? Because this area looks extremely pathetic. So from that perspective, they start warming up to the idea because you're telling them there's a problem, but you're not blaming it on them. Because sometimes I also understand where they're coming from. But for me, I say that push must come from the very person at the end who's affected by this problem. So before I talk too much, please allow me to again introduce Dr. Mumbi Wachira to take a seat. Doreen Orishaba from BasiGo. Doreen, are you? And I see there are 3 seats, so there should be one more person. The third person, Sebastian?
The third seat is for you, Russian.
What mathematics am I doing? All right, thank you very much. Could we get another mic?
Thank you. I was about to say English, please. I hope it sets the stage for sustainability of interaction as well. My name is Doreen Orishaba. I'm the electric bus product manager at BasiGo, Kenya. BasiGo is, I could say it's a startup that is really pushing for e-mobility within Nairobi. It's a great honor and privilege that we are taking the lead in pushing for, pushing out of the fossil fuel transport and pushing for more sustainable transport solutions. With me today, I have Samuel Kamunya. He's a business development manager. He came in after introductions had been done. But just like I asked before, if you haven't taken the electric bus, what are you waiting for? The next time, if you see it, at least please wave or take a picture, take a selfie. But let's push for sustainable mass mobility, especially. Thank you.
If I may, you don't speak Swahili, you don't understand Swahili?
I know a few words, I'm learning.
All right, okay, I will live with that. Mumbi, also, let me just give you a chance to again introduce yourself.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, and again, good morning again. Mumbi Wachira, Strathmore University faculty at the business school. have an accounting and finance background, but my research area is really around sustainability reporting. That's really how companies report and measure their social and ecological impact.
So I want to make this segment very interactive so that we're not just having a conversation amongst ourselves. We will be throwing some of these questions to the audience so that we also see if we can come up with solutions. I'm one person that does not believe in, we can always list all the problems that we can think of, but it takes somebody who wants to do something to think of also possible solutions. And we might not have all the solutions, but at least we might get on that track towards getting this solution. So also my questions are going to be very diverse. So if you feel like it's not in your area of expertise, you're free to move on to the next question, but you can also answer it from a personal perspective because all these issues affect us. And let me start with Dr. Mumbi. You talked about the $100 billion that was pledged at the COPA event last year that is supposed to help African countries dealing with the issue of sustainability. The question becomes access. Because let me give an example in terms of how climate change, or how, not just limited to climate, but change on how life used to be has affected people. I come from a place called Loitoktok. How many know Loitoktok?
The end of Kenya.
Only 3 people. It's at the foot of Mount Kilimanjaro. So when I wake up every morning, I see the effects of global warming because the ice and the snow of Kibo is really melting fast. Like it's not the same as when we were young. So, well, that was just to establish geographically the place I'm talking about. And that place, there are a lot of farmers. We farm maize, we farm tomatoes, vegetables, pretty much everything. And the last 2-3 years, there are only 2 people who farm tomatoes. Why? Because there's a species of amdudu, for lack of a better word, that attacks the tomatoes, such that from the outside, it looks very healthy. When you're harvesting and you hold it like this, it crumbles. And and the cost of now that, to prevent that amdudu from attacking your crop, is about 12,000 per liter. If you're farming in an acre and there are 3 rounds of spraying and whatnot, the cost of what would have cost 45,000 for an acre 5 years ago is now over 100,000. And this is just one pest you're trying to fight. So everybody decided this does not make sense anymore. So for a person like that, this is a small-scale farmer. How do they get access to their 100 billion? They can't even come anywhere close to it.
That's heart-rending to hear. Look, you see, even that 100 billion, it is not just for Africa, it is for least developed countries. So I always wonder, how are we dividing? That's the first thing. Now, I think people have realized there's a gap. And by people, I mean, these are the Western governments, the development finance institutions, the World Banks, the IFCs, these guys, they realized, hey, it's not getting to the people. Now recently, and my thinking is it doesn't get there because are we in those conversations and making the decisions? So how do we get into those spaces? So I've been challenging my colleagues and myself. How are we going to get there? So, for example, I've seen now the European Union wants to increase financing mechanisms to African countries and also South America. So they sent out a call for people to apply who are experts. But really, it is, you could have a business background, you could have an academic background, and there were these, there was a criteria for selection, and we're waiting to see if we've been chosen. But even then, I wrote to the coordinator and I said, this was sent to me by colleagues I studied with, because I studied outside of the country. It was sent to me by them. I didn't see this in any of my local networks. So if you're saying that you want to actually have the people who are on the ground and who have an understanding, and even not a full understanding of the problem, because even then, I don't have that knowledge that a local farmer will have. So how are we going to do it? I think what companies, institutions that finance need to do is they need to go back. When we talk about financing SMEs, financing micro businesses, financing smallholder farmers, they need to think about the models that they use. There's a lot, there's the previous conference I participated in here, although I was online, was around an idea we call shared value. And one of the ideas is how are you meeting unmet needs in communities? You actually need to go there, try and understand, and spend a lot of time. Then you build the solution and you co-design it with the community. Then the financing comes. And that's a challenge that we have. Now, how is that 100 billion going to get? I really think it won't. Even this COP27, I'm just saying those were optimistic outcomes, yeah? But I think it starts with awareness, and I also think it starts with putting pressure on our decision makers, because they are the ones who can then bring it back, yeah? But there's definitely, the way you say, I don't know, that separation, it's there, and it's very hard to break. I've seen small-scale interventions. You see a company here, an institution there, they try to put in something, but it can't scale because they are limited with their financing options.
All right, Doreen, let me ask you in terms of belief system. And your institution, your company has introduced electric buses. What's it like, especially when you're doing marketing? How do you appeal to people? Why should they? Because I know also people tend to stick with things that they are familiar with, So what has been your experience in the market?
Thank you. Probably before I respond to that, could I just add on to what she said?
Sure.
With regards to how do we get this 100 billion, right, to the people who actually need it. Like she said, one, we need decision makers to be more involved and more accountable. But also, I think that rather than waiting for the financial institutions to come back and be like, okay, how do we create the proper channels that could have this done? I think we also as a community, I'm speaking in terms of, let's say, Kenya, Africa. I'm Ugandan, by the way, so sorry, that's why it takes me a moment to synthesize when you speak Swahili. Yeah, so it goes back to how are we, especially the people who know, how are we passing on the information? How are we making our leaders accountable? How are we as a community making sure that, we are supporting whoever else is next to us and needs the support? I'll give an example. I got into the electric vehicle space, I could say right from university. So we started a project where we were developing the electric vehicle at Makerere University. So we're doing it more like a co-curricular activity, just a group of students mobilized by a lecturer just like yourself. And then we continued to do our own work, but there was no one who was pushing for us to, get to the right levels. And then our president got wind of it. And what did he do? He took his time to come and visit and find out what was happening. And these were his words. He said, "You have not invited me as the university. I have heard of this. I've just come to find out what's happening." And it's because of that, his very first visit, that the project, has grown to where it has. And let's not confuse this. The Ugandan electric project is different from the Kenyan one. I'm just giving an example of where this stems from. So in my perspective, it took a leader who was interested in the people, because for him, he was like, okay, these are just my students, but there's potential of what this could do for my economy, for my people, for the entire continent. So one, it takes really leaders to be as involved, as present, as aware as possible, and as accountable as possible as well. But then it also stems down to, I always tell people, whatever comes up, we always need to know that every individual, as long as you're in a particular space, we all have a role to play in this. For example, if we've known that probably farmers in our home area are facing a challenge, we have a role to play. Of course, I understand the challenges. We also are always, we always have our own things going. Like, of course, you're trying to juggle your job, balance with family. Then you have to take care of your mental health. the new in thing. Like there's always so much to focus on, but if we took a step back and be like, okay, how can I play my role in solving the little things that are around me? For example, that farmer, what would our role as individuals be, the people that are around him? How can we probably pass on information to him? How can our leaders organize themselves and push such issues to where it matters, to where the decisions are being made, so that when the decisions are being made, they are considerate of the actual things that are on ground, rather than just theory, rather than just policy change and policy making, but things that are of great impact. So if I could come back to the question, how the mindset, of course, usually everyone resists change, right? But I think we're in that generation that is a bit divided. There are those that still resist change. There are those that are really excited, So with regards to the electric bus right here in Nairobi, we've had both cases where we still have that generation that's saying, oh, Kenya Power can't even let me charge my phone to full in peace. How is it going to enable a bus fully charged? Not just one bus and the hundreds and thousands of buses that we're envisioning. So we have that generation. But then we also have that generation, like Sebastian himself, wherever you are, thank you for inviting us. The other day he posted on LinkedIn where he shared his story, where he had been following our bus and he was impressed. I think at first he even said he didn't know that the bus was here. But then we have the kind like him who are excited that one, it's something different. Two, they know that it's the future. Three, they're also thinking about it in terms of the impact to the environment. So we still, I could say, we definitely have both sides. The ones that are excited, the ones that are pushing for this, the ones that want something different, the ones that are thinking about the next generation, like she put it, right? We're looking at the impact of not just this generation. When I put you in the house and I leave your fridge fully stocked, please make sure by the time I come back, you've even improved. If you found chocolate ice cream, bring salted caramel as well. Like, let me come back and find something better rather than depleting it and leaving the fridge empty. And I feel like that's what we're doing for the next generation. We are just doing things that are focusing on today. How do I go through just today? And we are forgetting about tomorrow, leaving the world better for tomorrow. Yeah.
Well, you talked about how your idea piqued the interest of the president. And I'm thinking for us, this is an opportunity now that we're going into elections in the next 3 months. I mean, we really have to, people say that Kenyans hatujachoka enough. We are not tired yet. Because we talk, we complain on social media for the next 5 years, we have the best ideas, we know the kind of leadership we want, but come election time, I don't know what happens. Well, let's just say we don't know what happens. But this time is an opportunity for us to do something different, something new, because we have tried our way in the past. Like Albert Einstein used to say, if you do the same thing expecting different results, that's really madness. And you talked about how we can be part, we can create our own solutions. And I'm using the same example that you were working while a student at Makerere. Any Makerere alumni in the house? We have one. Thank you very much. You were working on this as an idea while you're still a student before you go to the job market. And this is where, Dr. Mumbi, I'm thinking. At Strathmore, we have incubation centers where people, come up with ideas and say specifically agriculture. Because I know with IT, that one is well taken care of. But can we have homegrown, very simple solutions? Because I realize that we have people out here, young people, older people who are very knowledgeable, but they are not at the right places. As in, you have people who know things, but they are not in the institutions where they make the most impact. So if we can grow these, local solutions that can be implemented without any bureaucracy, without any reapply process, whatnot, I think that could get us somewhere.
It would. And thank you for asking that. Because, so I'll explain what we have in Strathmore and then what I think we should also have. So we have 2 different incubation centers. These are Kenya Climate Innovation Center, KCIC. I think some are familiar with it, which really incubates businesses that are addressing climate change at the core of their business models. So different, people in agribusiness, but also different areas as well. And that seems to work very well, okay. There's also another incubation process, but that one focuses now on innovation, and it is done by iLab Africa. So those are two hubs, and we try to encourage our students, but it's also open, to the public. Now, and actually, like with KCIC, you can even secure financing for your business once it reaches to a different level. Now, the other things I've noticed is, I do a lot of training for SMEs. Yeah, SMEs, just around sustainability strategies. How do you think about it in your core business model? And what I've realized, because I've done it at different levels, I used to do, even for the micro businesses, even the boda, where you're telling this guy, that one wasn't sustainability, but it was more like accounting, the typical, when we're talking about capital, what do you need to think about? So you're telling him, when you go home, separate the money. There's a one for your enjoyment, for beer, then there's this one for your wife, then this one, save it. That's called capital, yeah? You retain it. So I've done that, and I've also done now the high level, which is, I think, what a lot of people here are, which is SMEs, lots of growth potential, looking to embed, I would say shared value sustainability within the things that you're doing. Now, my observation is this. We have many problems. I've realized that we are not investor ready. Yeah. You see, the people who has this money, the people who have the money tend to be the foreign investors most of the time. Yes, there's a growing angel investor network in Africa. There's also a growing body of impact investing in Africa. In fact, there's a lot of research that has been done on the landscape for impact investing all over the continent. But what you realize is that there's a gap, because you need to pitch and you need to gain the interest of these guys so that they can see this thing has potential. We're going to put money there. Yeah. Now, what role we can play, I think, and I've also pitched this because there's research we're doing around the future of work and how to prepare our graduates. I think what we need to do as universities, by the way, is making businesses investor ready. It's not just enough to teach people financial management skills. The thing is, does this person understand how to pitch to an organization like the IFC? Yeah? Can they hold their own? And even if they need an interpreter, but then at least the presentation is clear, they are clear in the core ideas that they have, I think there's a lot of potential there, so that it's able to then, again, we see more of those local solutions coming up. I definitely think more incubators anyway would help. I don't think we should just have two. We definitely need more, and we need also to combine these facilities across universities. I'll be very happy to collaborate with the University of Nairobi, like the business school, or even JKUAT, yeah, or even the ones in Makerere, or other places that, in East Africa and also West Africa. I think we need to see ourselves not just as we come, we talk, and just give knowledge. I think that age has gone away. It's more of, let us co-create things and learn together. And that's why I'm saying I don't know everything. Yeah, I've learned a lot just by listening to people introducing themselves. So I think that we need also that the mindset shift in universities.
All right, before I throw it to the audience, I think I would like Doreen to respond to the hypotheticals you asked. Personally, I'm very interested to know how does it work when there's a power outage. And when we were growing up, we used to believe if it rains and you're wearing red. So I don't know if the same theory would work, or if it's raining and this is an electric car. So some of these theories or these whatever, whether people are making it for fun or it's for real. But how does it work?
Interesting question. I like that enthusiasm that the Kenyan market especially has shown towards these buses. Like I said, we have both sides. And if I could, of course, our immediate market, the bus operators, the bus owners. And if I can let you in on a little secret, this goes a long way to explain the point that I'm coming to. The fact that sometimes you just need to start. Sometimes you just need to introduce. I feel like people usually don't know what's happening, so they also don't know how to respond. So exposure is a very big element. Why am I saying this? When we started out as BasiGo, we're like, okay, we're going to start as a pilot, right? First test the waters, understand is a product the right fit for the market, what is the market going to respond to this like? And of course, usually as a business, you have your own, you have your targets. You're like, okay, if I can hit this, then I'm good. But we have been, I don't want to say surprised, but there's been great and pleasant reception from the market. For example, when we said, okay, we're going to pilot and then we'll start to take reservations for these buses, we gave ourselves a number. But I can tell you, as soon as we introduced it, this has been, Sam, I hope this is not a company secret. The response has been great in that already with regards to reservations for the buses, we have hit more than 7 times the number that we had set. So this goes a long way to show that people usually just don't know, or because some things are not available, there's no exposure, they actually don't know how to take them on or how to handle them. So answering the hypothetical question, how does this work? So think of it as your phone, right? You have a phone. For it to move and power, of course, you have to charge it. So these electric buses do not have diesel, rather they do not have engines, they don't have exhaust. That's probably one of my very interesting thing. Usually when we've been taking the buses on the road, and for sure, the first thing when you tell people there's no engine, there's no exhaust, they don't believe that. They want to go around the bus and try to peep under and look for the exhaust. But yeah, it's unbelievable that yes, we do have vehicles that can move without the engine and without the exhaust pipe. So it's powered by a motor that is enabled by batteries. So we have a battery bank on board on the bus, and that's what gives energy to the motor for its propulsion. It's very quiet because there's no engine, there are no vibrations, it's quiet. And part of the feedback, the greatest feedback that we keep receiving from passengers is, for the first time, usually matatus are very loud. For the first time, someone was like, they could hold a conversation with their neighbor, because usually they have to shout on top of the noise from the engine, noise from the blast. Oh, you guys are very lively here in Nairobi. Like, it's very easy for a matatu to pass you by and you can tell what song is playing. So usually they have to compete above all that noise when trying to speak just to their neighbor. But this one was like, for the first time, they could actually hold a conversation without really screaming on top of their lungs. So how, of course, for the buses to work, we need to have charging stations in place. So, like the SDG goes, especially 9, where it talks about industry, innovation, and infrastructure. So we need the infrastructure in place to support these buses. And that is charging infrastructure to start with. So we have charging stations as well. They are not as little as your phone charger. They are high voltage charging stations. Right now we just have 2 BasiGo, because we have 2 pilot buses that we are running at the moment. But of course, as we continue to grow, as we continue to expand, the plan is to establish a charging network within Nairobi and the other cities that will welcome us as